Disclaimer. This will be a thorough and critical review. If you do not want spoilers for TSC or TSS, go no further. Because Jenna's style, not only on the page but in her videos, is very clear, we will be talking about her as an author. This does not represent criticism of her as a human person. We do not condone harassment or bullying. We do condone making jokes about writing. If you cannot stand to see anything negative about Jenna's writing choices, this is not the video for you.
So, here we are. Look at this thing. This is a chonky beast. This is a kitty beast. I don't even know if I should give you a quick rundown of how I do read-alongs because this one is going to be so weird. I am not going to reread chapters 1 and 2 that I read as sample chapters for you. You can just go and look at that. That's my official read-along for chapters 1 and 2. So we're going to go ahead and start the Savior Sisters proper true read-along at chapter 3. Highlights from chapters 1 and 2. When Layla was a child, she kidnapped another child. And as an adult, pretty useless. She's the God Queen, but ultimately doesn't really actually do anything except for lay tits out on the grass and makes men faint because she's sparkly. If you were confused, like what is the Savior Sister, what is even happening right now, this is the wrong video for you to stumble into my channel. We do these things called read-alongs. I read the book, I commentate both humorously, at least that's the hope, and also mentioning things from a writer standpoint because I am also a writer. If you don't like that I'm doing this, you can read my book and then tell me how much it sucked. But you have to read it first. You can't just go and give it 1 star. You have to fucking read it because if I have to read this thing, you have to read my book before you go rate it 1 star. I'm sorry, those are the rules. So we just gather here in my darkened living room. Usually I'm in my pajamas, no makeup, that sort of thing. And we read. And that's pretty much all the preamble I'm gonna give you. Go watch the first one if you're confused. Technically it wasn't chapters 1 and 2. Technically it was like the prologue, which is just called the betrayal. It's not called a prologue. And chapter 1, so technically I will be starting with chapter 2. I don't know why that first bit wasn't just chapter 1. Like, it's okay to have a chapter 1 be in a slightly different time period than your chapter 2. It's fine. Nobody can stop you. So, properly, chapter 2 of The Savior Sister. Still like this cover. It doesn't look as nice in the softcover edition, but that's not really the author's fault. Let's go. Chapter 2 is called The Birthday. So apparently we do celebrate birthdays in Thesson. Oh, I think this is a special birthday. I think that when she reaches a certain age, like she maybe comes into her powers more or something, or she gets more power in the world, or she gets more political power. Guess we'll find out. Another sex scene. The main character is constantly stumbling into people masturbating or people having sex. She's gone to Cosima's room. Cosima's just doing it. Oh, she's doing it with Asher, the handsome guard who fainted when he saw how sparkly Layla was. If you don't want your savior to walk in on you, maybe lock the door. That's a crazy idea. Granted, Layla could just teleport in, but like, they didn't even lock the door. I see we have the sisters being rivals immediately. They were kind of maybe almost friends in the first chapter, her and Cosima, but now Cosima apparently set this up. She summoned Layla into her room so Layla could see her having sex with Asher. So I guess not locking the door was part of the plan.
It's a cunning plan, actually. Of course it is.
Is this going to be what Layla's damage is? Because we all know in the first book Layla is very possessive of Tobias and also very insecure about their relationship. And if Tobias ever looks at another woman, she freaks out. It constantly like misconstrues when Tobias is talking about her and when he's talking about Cosima. And is it all because Layla fancied Asher, and then Cosima got with Asher, and now Layla's always worried that every man is going to run after Cosima? Weak sauce, that's what that is. We do have the classic Jenna trope of a very hot girl getting all the attention. Do you not think that you're pretty, Jenna? You're very extremely pretty, so I don't know why you keep writing all these characters who are like outshone by their much hotter, more busty sibling or friend or something. There's always a busty girl, a hot busty girl, as a bully or a foil. I was really hoping with Cosima that we would have her being like a human for a little while before she maybe got jealous and slowly turned on Layla, but no, she's just a bitch right away. I keep getting my hopes up for character arcs and characters growing or changing or learning or being round people, but instead they're just one way, and that's the way they are. Everybody be having sex. Everybody be having sex in this palace on Layla's birthday. She goes to her other sister, Delphi's room, and Delphi's got a woman in her bed. But of course we have to establish that Delphi is a lesbian. Now I didn't want to mention this right away, but I am gonna just tell you my theory about what we're going to see in this book. Just judging by my past reading, I feel like I know the tropes that she leans on. So I am going to make a prediction about Layla and other women. Layla, I am predicting, will have no other women friends that are a threat to her, like romantically. So she's allowed to have Delphi because Delphi is a lesbian and therefore not threatening to Layla romantically. And she's allowed to have Pippa because Pippa has some type of unspecified cognitive disability, so Pippa is not a threat romantically. Cosima, Kat, do you have to scratch right now? Cosima is straight and hot and therefore a threat. I am predicting that any women that Layla could be friends with, if they are hotter than her or seem like they could potentially steal her man, Layla will not befriend them, and they will turn out to be bad people. Maybe there will be some servants that Layla's friends with, but those servants, again, because of them being servants, will also kind of not be a threat. I would love to see more stories with women as allies. I think Layla could be a lot happier if she perhaps sought out more women as allies. But we'll see if I'm right. That's my prediction right now. But I bet Layla is totally one of those girls who would have been like, I don't have any friends who are girls. Girls are just too catty. I only hang out with boys. Not to make fun of people who are like that. I was like that when I was younger too, until I learned that having women friends is also equally awesome. But for a while, I was the same way. But I was a lot younger than Layla. This is a pure Jenna line. I swear she gets more cunty with age. Sure. Here's another thing that happens when you capitalize your like pronouns and such. They also capitalize you when they're referring to the savior, to Layla. And because of the way that capital Y is like shaped, it makes an extra space between the last word and the Y, which makes your brain go even more that it's supposed to be a sentence break. I still hate this choice. I absolutely hate this choice. I think it was the worst choice. Nothing I can do about it now. Layla knows that 3 men of unsavory disposition have been hired to assassinate her, but they're in the tournament for some reason because that's the best way to assassinate her, for sure. Here we have a paper-thin, very flimsy reason why they can't just kill Layla's father. His network reaches far past what we know. If we cut off the head of the beast, another will grow in its place to strike me down. Until we uncover all his allies, he lives. That just strikes me as very hand-wavy, like, it's just more than we know. It's deeper than we know, don't ask questions. Layla even uses the capitalized pronouns with herself. Layla's positioning someone called Rom to be the proctor, and I can only imagine this Rom, which would be significantly better than whatever this book is going to do. Oh, Romulus, that's Rom, okay. We have a new page, a new character we did not see in the previous book. His name is Hylas. He's page to the sovereign. Jenna also likes to have a lot of characters in her books, like too many, in my opinion. Rein in some of these characters, combine them. They don't all have to be named and described. He's come to ask Layla what kind of guy she thinks is hot so they can try to find her some hotties for the tournament. We have dick jokes. We're walking. Oh, but Layla is innocent. She makes dick jokes, but she also doesn't really know how long a dick is supposed to be. She's an innocent baby who also talks about dicks.
It feels like a bag of sand when you're touching it.
Bag of sand?
Of course there's the trope of making your female lead a virgin, but in this day and age, and especially in a book like this, why? Of course Layla is also not into the tournament. She and Toby are perfect for each other because they both are just not into the tournament, and Layla's like, these men don't love me for me. She's very Jasmine, you know?
I am not a prize to be won.
She's been dragged off by the servant girls now after having a really tepid conversation about masturbation with Delphi. This is a mature book. They talk about masturbation in it. Female masturbation. So now she's off with her servants in the bath area. There's 4 servants. They're from the previous book, but they were so unmemorable there that I just kind of referred to them as 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I suspect that's what I'll continue to do. They're kind of basically the stylists from the Hunger Games without Cinna. I don't care what they look like. Jenna really loves to describe pretty much every character we meet, and that's fine, but she always kind of just does it the same way every time, and some characters we just don't need to know that much about what they look like. We already had the scene with Delphi, but we have to have another scene with the servants, all talking excitedly about what they're going to be doing. They're going to be looking at all the men and choosing the men and whatever, helping with that. And Layla is again being like, gosh, I really am not excited about the tournament or any of the men. But we got that from the last scene, so this scene should probably be doing something else. And I don't know what it's doing, except being like, hey, you remember these servant girls from the first book? They're in this one too! And hey, do you remember that scene in the first book where Tobias was stripped naked and like women were like examining him and the length of his cock? That's what these girls will be doing! You remember? We have another character in the form of Mosumi, who's basically just that lady from Cinderella 2 or whatever, who's just making Cinderella be a good princess. God, we got another servant. We keep introducing people. Now we have Cecily, the fitter, who probably will help her with her clothes. Again, she's immediately described in exactly the same way, same cadence, the same words as everyone else is described. It's very boring. I tend to like to pick a strong feature that a character has when I'm describing, like in the work in progress that I have going right now, which is the sequel to The Wolf and the Hawk, there's a character who has kind of like sharp eye teeth that makes her look really like kind of cunning and clever. Like her teeth are just a little bit too sharp. You know, you've seen people who maybe just have like that, their canine or whatever, it's just a little bit too sharp. She's got that. And so, like, that's a thing that you notice about her right away. And then I can describe some other things, but that's like a distinct thing that makes her unique. And none of these characters are unique at all. Everybody, to a man, to a woman, is trying to convince Layla how thrilled she should be about this tournament, and Layla is just not having it. This is the 3rd scene in a row of this. Also, apparently Cecily has been here since Layla was a child, but it's essentially chapter 3, and this is the first time we've seen her. Where was she? Especially back when Layla was all like, all I have are my mirror mummies. Where was this older servant lady being her surrogate mom? She's being a surrogate mom now, all like, oh child, you should be excited for the tournament. We are getting so many visual descriptions, and I like a visual description. I can be a little bit over the top with my own visual descriptions, but we gotta describe what everyone's fucking wearing, we gotta describe the hall, we just gotta describe everything. Layla may be an alcoholic, she's really into drinking lots of wine. Here's something we could have never picked up by reading. Layla is not content. I would have never guessed.
You have a sarcasm sign?
We haven't got anything about people's auras yet this chapter, which is a little weird, because we know everything that they're wearing. So I'm kind of surprised we haven't really gotten any auras. Layla just had some kind of episode. She gets a present from Cosima, and then she just starts spiraling. Oh, Layla has pale skin, but Cosima also has pale skin. Cosima has prettier eyes. It's a really weird thing. And like, what is happening? Did she just like have a self-doubt stroke? It's very strange. The Pale skin, Layla froze, studying her sister. Painted lips, shiny red waves, and milky flesh that could rival her own. Layla was fairer in comparison, but the shade was similar. Passable as the same to the untrained eye. Eyes! Cosima's apple green irises weren't particularly unusual, but they were striking. And perhaps that was all that mattered. Like, what is this weird train of thought that we are on? She's still at it. She gets a gift from Pippa, and all she can think about is how much hotter Cosima is than her. Settle down, honey. If anyone doesn't have to worry about someone being hotter, it's the God Queen. Oh, Layla gets a painting, which she absolutely loves, of her mother, which I think is done by Toby's art master.
So this is another tangent that we're going on, but my friends and I just happened to be doing a rewatch of the BBC's show Merlin, and guess who should appear in the very first episode of the very first season? Why look, it's Layla. Okay, so it's Morgana, but is this not exactly what Layla looks like? Now, of course, it's not unusual for authors to base the appearance of their characters off of characters in other things, and now I'm just curious. Did Jenna watch Merlin? It seems maybe a little bit of a silly show for her, since we know she doesn't like silly things, but you never know.
Layla has teleported away after the party to the watchtower where she hangs out, where she and Tobias will later hang out and not have a cow catapulted towards them by an enemy that I really wish would show up. Did Jenna watch my review? I complained in the last book about why Layla couldn't just teleport out of the palace to anywhere that she could see. But apparently she just can't do that. Some sort of force field, unclear. But Delphi fucking just walked up, so Layla teleported here, but Delphi's just very, very fast, I think. She's just like, I'm here. Layla, you were a child when you learned of your father's treachery. Girls of the same age were playing with dolls, and yet you began studying politics and training to protect yourself. While you were playing with dollies, I was learning the ways of the sword. I can get through a whole book without any of the other characters needing to tell the main character how awesome they are. I know it's supposed to be like a friend encouraging her friends. Sometimes you tell your friends, no, you're awesome, you're badass, I love you. But when you do it in a book, when you have a character do it to your main character in a book, it definitely sounds a whole lot more like, isn't my main character great? She's so great. Everyone loves her because she's great. And of course we have to remember that Layla is also a fucking murderer. She says she's starting to lose track of the men she's killed. You protect your people whether they know it or not. Well, except the people that you murder all the time. Romulus is the one whose daughter she stole, right? And now he is her minion.
I stole the baby! I stole the baby!
Romulus failed to get the proctor job, so Layla's teleporting away to go kill the guy who did. As I suspected, Asher is the birthday gift that her dad gave Layla. Knew he was gonna give her a man. Ah, he's her personal guard, who we never see in the other book. Okay, so I guess Asher, his personality is he's just kind of a himbo.
Hey guys, which one of these makes me look more like a doctor? Me playing saxophone or me listening to saxophone?
And once Asher, the himbo, has escorted her to her chamber, she teleports off and kills Simon. And that's the end of this chapter. Thank goodness. I'm gonna try not to drag these chapters out too much. It seems like I have something to say like every other paragraph. I'm gonna try to keep it to a minimum, but I give you no guarantees. This might be the longest read along ever. But right now, I'm gonna stop.
Well, hey, did you come here looking for patrons? Well, you're in luck, because I have a list of the best patrons in the world right here in my hand. They are Patrick and Sophie, Callison, Ray, Artemis, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Ryakio, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Lennox. That's right, you don't need to look any further. These are the best patrons. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
You know, to be honest with you, this guy's making me feel stupider by the second. He's all yours.